All right, so what we're going to be discussing here is the body's position that we get to the moment our front foot gets into the ground for the very first time. And this moment in time is called our foot strike. So we are going to be talking about the moment when, boom, those feet get into the ground for the very first time. And again, that's called our foot strike position. At foot strike, we want to be looking at our body in two halves. Our upper half and our lower half. At foot strike, we want our lower half to have rotated forward towards our target. And a useful thing to look at to know if we've been able to do that is the belt buckle. And is that belt buckle facing the target? If the belt buckle is facing the target, it's a pretty good chance that we have successfully rotated both the back foot, the back knee, and the back hip. When we're able to rotate the back foot, the back knee, and the back hip, as our front foot is getting into that foot strike position, we will successfully be able to get our belt buckle driving towards the target. If we specifically take a look at just the back foot of these four guys, let's watch as they are rotating that back leg, how that back foot is rotating. At this point in time, all four guys still have their entire foot flat onto the ground, and then they begin to rotate through or over top of their big toe. Their foot kind of rolls, folds over, or drives forward. And as the foot does that motion, we now shift our view to the back knee and know as the foot is rolling over the big toe, that the back knee is also rotating forward. And how those two things, the back foot and the back knee, are working together. We can also see that as we go to drive and rotate that back foot and back knee, how they do that while they gain ground down the mound and towards their catcher. So this is the difference between rotating our bodies forward, or a word for that is driving ourselves forward, versus just rotating in place. If we were just rotating in place, our bodies would not be able to gain this ground down the mound. Our bodies wouldn't be able to accelerate our power and energy down the mound. And we can then look and see that the foot has the toe, and then the heel is in front of the toe, meaning we have rotated forward. We then go to the upper body, the upper halves, from the waist up, and we want to separate that upper body from the lower body. We want the direction that our hips are facing, which is to the target, to be separate from the direction our shoulders are facing. So we notice we can see the Giants, the Padres, the Pirates, and his number. We can see the Phillies, and we can see the Brewers or Milwaukee. I'm not sure what they have displayed on their jerseys there. So the direction of their lower bodies is to the target, and the direction of their shoulders is still facing, for these right-handers, towards third base, or the direction they have been the entire time. So we rotate the lower body first, then we get into foot strike, then we rotate our upper body second. And the more that we can get those lower bodies to fully rotate to the target by the time that front foot hits the ground, and we've also been able to keep that upper body from rotating and staying back, we will have created as much upper lower half separation or hip shoulder separation as possible. And the more hip shoulder separation or upper lower half separation we can create, the more power we're going to be able to produce, and the amount of stress that's put on our arm is going to be reduced. What we're also going to notice is that almost regardless of your arm slot, if we have a true 3/4, low 3/4, high 3/4, an over-the-top arm slot, or anything in between those, we're always going to find ourselves in a relatively 90 degree angle, meaning from our elbow across to our other shoulder, we want to think is nice and even. 90 degrees in that armpit. We also want to think 90 degrees in that elbow. We want this type of arm position, that 90-90, we'll call it, at the moment of foot strike. When our arm has loaded up to this position here at the moment of foot strike, and the upper body has not rotated yet, our body's rotation will accelerate the throw forward. If the arm is not in this 90-90 position, the body's rotation forward is going to be less than ideal and in sync with how the arm will flow after the body goes. So we're looking for this 90-90-ish position in that throwing arm at foot strike. What we can also notice at foot strike is, where is this glove at? It's in front of the body by the rib cage. We're not letting it, if we're thinking here's some water, don't drown the glove. Don't let your glove get wet. Don't drown that glove. This one right here is a little too high. Should be more towards the belt. Okay. When the glove gets finished into the body like this, it's able to help keep this front shoulder in line, meaning it's not going to open up early. Because if that front shoulder starts to open up early, that's going to start to pull the back shoulder forward early. And now we would not have separated our upper and lower halves as much, because the angle of the shoulders would begin to rotate forward, which would be more matching the angle of the hips. The final thing we're going to look at is this front leg. We see all these guys have different degrees of bend in their front legs. But what we're going to notice is that as the upper body now rotates to throw, we need to make our front leg become a firm fixture of which we can rotate around. So thinking about this front leg here turning into a flagpole. My flagpole is always going to be strongest if it's straight. Or at least I can't have my flagpole move forward while my body is trying to rotate forward. So we'll redraw these little outlines here, and we will have these guys. Oh man, that's all right. It's going to get back to it anyway. Boom. And now we'll watch as they go to throw. How that leg is locking out, stiffening up, straightening out. So that now that leg is here. Now that leg is here. Now that leg is here and here. From the bend, straightening it out. And what we can notice is as that leg locks out, stiffens up, straightens out, becomes that firm flagpole, notice how that upper body is able to catapult itself out in front and down more. Able to get out in front more. Out in front more. So that way, if we look, we can't get everyone exactly at release, but ball just out, ball just out, ball is coming out, ball is slightly a little bit more out than the bottom two. But we're able to look at this angle of the chin to the waist, back out to the front foot, boom, boom, boom. Just how out in front of themselves they're getting. And that's because of that front leg's ability to lock out. So we can see that they're starting, boom, boom, there, and there. So now it's not just the arm throwing the ball down. It's the body throwing the ball down. It's the body going down with the throw. Body accelerating down. And as the body's accelerating down, the lower half is firming up. So that way, as I need to finish all this violent rotation, I have the ability to do that around that firm front leg. I have that ability to rotate around. I can finish all that violent rotation from my back leg around. I can finish all that violent rotation from my hips around. I can finish all that violent rotation out of my back shoulder around. Giving my arm plenty of time to slow down and giving the back muscles, my scapular muscles, all the time they need to activate and slow down that rapidly accelerating arm. All right, we're going to be discussing the mechanics from a front view, and we're just going to concern ourselves with our path or the flow down the mound. So we already got these videos to the top of these guys' leg lifts. Obviously, every pitcher comes down the mound at different rates, different speeds. However, to make these guys flow together, I have changed up their speeds to fit. So what we're going to see is that we got Jerry Jones over here getting that front leg fully extended and really sitting into his delivery. We got Greinke, who's got his knee, which is going to be further back towards second base than his foot is. He's really taking this front knee and kind of curling it back so that his front hip stays closed. And Kirby is going like Jones here with his front leg, but he's keeping it in a more bent position rather than kicking it straight out like Jones. But what we do notice is no matter how these guys load into their back hips, getting down into their legs, engaging their lower halves, what do we notice? We notice where the glove is going. And that's to help them be able to see over their front shoulder. They want to be looking down the barrel of their shoulder, because the longer we can be looking here over this shoulder as we proceed down the mound. Obviously, we've gotten back to center, but look, we're still looking right over that shoulder. Still looking right over that shoulder. Still looking right over that front shoulder. The longer we can do that into our moment of foot strike, bam, bam, we can see front shoulder, and our head is still trying to fight to keep that front, or rather our front shoulder is still fighting to stay above our chin. The front shoulder is still fighting to stay in above the chin. The front shoulder is still fighting to stay in above the chin. And when we do that, we can see that the back hip now has been able to come through, exposing the belt buckle to the batter, to our catcher, but preventing, because that front shoulder's fought to stay in so that we continue to look over it. Look what that's done with our chest. It's kept it squared up, squared up, squared up, as that lower half has been able to fire, and there lies our upper lower half separation that we're trying to achieve. And now here comes the most important part. Getting into this position is key for both our power production, our ability to throw the baseball with our body, thus reducing the amount of stress that's going on through our arm during that delivery, and helping ensure, this wasn't the straightest line here, helping ensure our energy continues to flow to the catcher. All right, we can see that head staying there, that head staying there. Kirby's fighting to keep it in there. And you can see he's fighting to keep it in there because it did not go more out there. So we're rotating that back shoulder. We're rotating that back shoulder forward. 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 So that way all of our power can be flung through those fingers, out through that ball, forward. If we watch that again without any interruption, into foot strike, out of foot strike. Everything staying in line with our target. And then noticing as they're getting into release, where are those chin and chests going? To the target. To the target. The angle of our trunk, this mass from our shoulders through our waist, our trunk right now is upright. It's above our hips. In relation to the ground, it's in a 90-degree angle. As we get into release, those trunks in relation to the ground are no longer up here trying to throw the baseball. Instead, in relation to the ground, these trunks of these elite throwers of the baseball, both in terms of command, the best to ever do it, in terms of longevity and success, one of the best to do it, and an upcomer with elite velocity and potential to be an all-star. Every one of their trunks at release went from being up here at foot strike to out here at release, bringing that energy down the mound, but most importantly, towards our target. And that's something that we're able to see even easier and more clearly in the side view videos. All right, so if we kind of take this back once more and we see these arm slots, we'd say, boom. Oops, let me draw a better line than that. Right, we're at a high 3/4, 3/4. We are in a same thing, 3/4, high 3/4. Same thing here, right? So these are some of your most common arm slots are the 3/4 to high 3/4 arm slot. And then what we'll look at next here are some guys that are in that lower 3/4 tier. So we'll let, we got Luis Hill, Kyle Harrison, and Carl Crawford. Right, so the same thing, moment of that foot strike, we can see that they're still fighting to keep that front shoulder in, keep that front shoulder in, fighting to keep that front shoulder in, and then coming to release and through, we can see how those heads are fighting to stay in. Luis Hill a little bit outside, but we can see through release, bam, it's there, it's there, it's there, it's there. Now it's out, which is no big deal. It's already stable for long enough post-release, bam, that he could do a cartwheel over here if he wanted to after. So fighting to keep that front shoulder in, and by doing that, the shoulders have stayed squared up and with a good lower half timing and pattern sequencing. We got the back hip to have come forward, the back hip to have come forward, exposing that belt buckle to the batter, creating that upper and lower half separation that we're trying to seek in order to achieve higher velocities and minimize the stress that's put on our arm during these high intense and continuous throws. If we then take these guys into their moment of release, we got that same concept that we did earlier, and we can see here's our low 3/4, even getting closer, some would say, to even true sidearm. We have that low 3/4, and we got that 3/4 to low 3/4. But what we can notice is all the same with those different arm slots, but the most common arm slots in our game. All these guys are fitting the same bill in their own unique ways, but these important key points are all very much getting checked off by each, no matter what. All right, so here's your video. We got it synced up. We'll run it twice, like always. First time here, all in motion, so you can see what you look like. The second time, we're going to pause it at that moment of foot strike, and then be able to discuss some things that led us to that point, and then discuss the things that are going to occur after that point. Bam. So here we are at foot strike. What I want us to focus on is visually, we're checking every box here. We got the good 90-90 that we talked about. We got this head looking over the front shoulder. The glove is working its way back in towards our body. Back hip is through. There's our belt buckle. Visually fantastic. What I want to note is this leg lift. As it's coming up, if we notice, we have, like, if we just go like front hip, knee, and foot, and we just kind of observe this type of like angling or positioning, with the knee always being further behind the foot. And as it comes up, that knee to foot ratio is getting closer and closer to the foot being behind the knee. And in fact, it's only a couple moments later until that is, in fact, the case. So if we just think for a moment, as the knee is going up, we would anticipate the foot to kind of do the similar like path, right? Which means the alignment that our leg is inside of our hip, how it's inside that hip socket, how our leg, if you were just sitting in a chair right now and you just kind of wiggle your knee in and out while keeping the balls of your foot on the ground, and you put your hand on your hip, you can feel how that hip socket is moving. And then if you just move that knee to the inside of your body and you hold it there, you notice that that foot is on the outside of your body. And now if you try to maintain that same hip positioning but bring the foot behind the knee, you realize that you lose a lot of that hip tension. We're trying to maintain hip tension during the leg lift. And you have hip tension already started here. Hip tension, hip tension. There's tension inside of this hip to keep the leg in this type of positioning. We maintain that tension, but we're starting to lose some of that tension, and now we don't have it no more. So what's now going to happen is this foot, because it got from being in front of the knee to now swinging kind of behind the knee, it's going to very quickly want to revert itself back again as you start going down the mound. And now that foot kind of wants to open up early and kind of extend forward. If anything, if it's going to do any type of extension here, we would want to think more of, like we saw in that front view breakdown of the big leaguers, of like the Jared Jones portion of it, where his leg is extending out this way. Because your leg does fully extend, but it does its extension out towards home plate and also away from your body. And that's how you get this. You do a good job sitting, but you're sitting while that front side is kind of actively trying to open on you. And I believe that can be a contributor to this head violently having itself go there. That front foot kind of has to do that little motion. head kind of does that little motion. So if we can think about just maintain, we don't have to think about extending the foot out over yonder on this way down. As long as we think about maintaining this type of alignment, as the knee continues to come up, the foot continues to come up in that same type of way with it. Other than that, you're looking real good, dude. We clean that up over the next couple weeks, and then from here on out, it'll just be about shaping pitches. I know I said this before to you, and we gotta. Maybe this is what we spend time with. I just noticed this again. Look where this darn thumb of yours is at again. On the side of the baseball. Get it underneath the ball, homie. Get it underneath the ball. I should see this finger and then the thumb underneath here, not cutting across the baseball here. So we gotta get comfortable with that. So we'll be splitting time between getting comfortable with his leg lift to come up in its good position, showing you how that will help us sit differently slightly, how that'll help our head stay a little bit more still through release rather than getting all janky up. And then from there, just be about making our off speed better, more consistent. All right. We got your video synced up here. We'll let it run 2 times through. First time will be all one motion, so you have the opportunity to see what you look like. And then the second time we'll pause it at that moment of foot strike so we can discuss how you got to that position, and then we'll be able to discuss the movements that we're doing after that position to better help us understand how we can become a more efficient and effective and ultimately more powerful pitcher. So here we are at that moment of foot strike. What I want us to do is we're going to go back in time from hand separation to this moment in time. And I just want you to pay attention to your arm's path. Okay? This is the end of the arm path before we start throwing. Okay, so this is where we're at, and this is the position we're in. Take note of that. And now we're going to watch how it gets there. So from the moment our hands start to separate from one another, the path that arm takes. The path that arm takes. And the person that arm path most similarly most similarly looks like is Ben Joyce. At least that I can think of off the top of my head and that I have video for. So if we pull him over to here, drop you back a little bit there. Okay, so there's that. Oops. Okay, so as his hands separate, your hands separate, boom. And now we're mostly concerned, like we said, about the arms path, the throwing arms path. So we watch his arm load back, and we watch your arm load back. Very similar, right? Where's your ball facing? Catcher with your hand to second base. Where's his ball to catcher? Where's the top of his hand? To second base. You both have this longer, bigger arm swing back. But what we're going to notice is as you get your front foot into the ground, where that hand is going. Noticing how we have that good 90-degree bend in the elbow. Right here. And then as that front foot gets into the ground, how now we have much less than that 90-degree angle. If we look at Ben Joyce, as his front foot is getting into the ground, that 90-degree bend stays the same. AKA that hand is not dipping to the head like yours is. This hand dipping to the head. The hand dipping to the head. And when that happens, the hand now is going to kind of get flung around our body instead of getting flung through our body. And what that ultimately looks like going into release here now is this layback. If we look on our front view over here, we can kind of see the baseball right behind your shoulder here. Right? So there's the baseball. And now your arm is laying back into external rotation. And that ball is still behind your head here. Right? So now when your arm is in its most laid back position, right? We can't even tell where this part of your arm ends and your forearm, where is it going here, right? Almost the same plane. Your arm is almost fully laid back and the baseball is behind your head at this point. When in fact, when our arm gets laid back to this full extent, we would rather have this elbow be in line with our body instead of it being so far behind our body still. If we look at that then with Ben Joyce, we're going to see as his arm gets into his most externally rotated positioning right here, in between these two frames, we can see that the elbow is in line with the chest. Whereas your arm in its most externally rotated position is so far behind your chest. So now as your shoulders continue to rotate around, continue to rotate through, this arm, as it comes out of external rotation, instead of it going forward out of external rotation, it's going to have to go big time up through external rotation. So you can see that there, it's coming out of its external rotation. Excuse me. I just had lunch. Triple cheeseburger. Right? And then if we come over, or if we continue this just a little bit longer, that ball is already coming out of your fingers in these frames here. And even if we give you the benefit of the doubt and say the ball is still somewhat in your fingers here, I mean, that's barely in front of our face. Barely in front of our face. So we can not really honestly say that you're releasing the ball out in front. And the main reason because of that is this hand collapsing into the ear, into the back of the head, instead of just staying here. This collapse, this collapse, this collapse, that collapse sets up everything else. So if we then take that same point of someone that's gotten their body into the proper positioning at this moment of the chest being completely straight towards the target, we're going to now notice as that arm comes out of external rotation, it's going to be going to the target. We can even see that drag or that blur of that white baseball going straight towards that target more. So I really think that is our big thing, is to figure out how we're going to go about doing that, right? And I got a front view of Ben Joyce here as well for you to be able to see. I couldn't find any recent ones from the big leagues, so we're going to have to do with one from 2021 when he was still with Tennessee. I don't know if you can hear it, but we got a chopper going over. Oh, military Selfridge. Real low. Pretty sweet. Okay, so you guys both have this slight little hunch piece going on. Ben initiates his a lot earlier than you do. I don't want you to initiate yours any earlier. I'm not trying to make an observation in order to bring a change. I'm just pointing something out. All right. Very similar positions right here. Let me get you just a little bit further. There we go. Very similar positions. Like I said, Ben Joyce is holding this hunch over position much longer than you did. But ultimately at foot strike, he gets back up to straight. And we can kind of notice your lower back kind of doing a little arch here. Kind of arch in here. So maybe this arch, we also look at the hand during this point in time of the arch. The hand's collapsing at that point. So maybe we go the Ben Joyce route with you, and we think less turning the shoulders and less turning of the front hip in the beginning, and more stacking myself into one another. And that can help us keep this posture of chin, keeping this posture of chin over shoulder, but more importantly, out in front of hip, versus chin over shoulder, pretty much over hip. So I think that's going to be our first go of how we're going to fix the arm's path post foot strike. Because everything else, bud, is looking pretty darn good. We just got to figure out a way so that we don't have to launch this ball here, after foot strike. But we can be... Get him the foot strike. Yeah, so in between these two frames, we'll call it this one. Right? Be able to get you guys, or be able to get you to have that bam, 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 out in front, out in front, out in front, out in front, versus trying to get out in front, but that ball doesn't get released out in front. It's getting released way up, way up, way up versus out in front, out in front, out in front. So I think that's going to be our plan of attack to begin, is to not think less turning of everything towards shortstop and more coming into ourselves during that leg lift, thinking have the chin and the leg lift knee kind of meet one another, and then hold that hunched over position, tight core, engaged core, and then maybe that will help us reduce the chance of this arching to occur, because when that arch occurs, that's also when that hand gives out, and then from there is where our issues occur with stress on the arm, sporadic, crazy, wild pitches probably, and off-speed pitches is going to be very difficult to command with consistent movement and sharp late movement rather than loopy, early to recognize movement. All right, big fella. Here's your video synced up from 2 points of view. Sorry. Before it goes any further, you're going to realize that I underestimated how far you're going to get down that mound and how low your arm slot was going to be. So the camera in the front view is too close. It's going to cut off a good chunk of your throwing arm here. So we'll take that back once more for you. So I do apologize. It's not going to be anything that's going to hinder our abilities to break this delivery down of yours. But you're going to see here that we lose about a quarter of your forearm and all of your hand. Excuse me. We'll pause it here at the moment of foot strike. Okay, and what we can see is our lower body is doing a great job. We're checking off all the boxes with what we're trying to accomplish from that. However, we can see that our throwing arm is late to the party. We're looking to be in that 90-90. That was a pretty aggressive 90, actually. Like something here, right? Getting there. And we can see instead you're way out here. So what's going to happen then is, as our delivery continues here through foot strike, the shoulders rotating forward is now the reason your hand gets fully flipped up. So what we'll see here is as this shoulder comes through, boom, now the hand flips up. Now the hand flips up. But in reality, is the hand flipping up, or is the elbow just getting underneath the hand finally? And that's what's actually happening, right? Because we can see from this front view here, here's your back elbow. At this point in time, that back elbow is in that good loaded position behind your back. Nice, strong position to be in. However, we don't have that ball also back there. And by the time that hand would be able to be back there, aka above the elbow's not back there no more. And that's because it's over here. It's in line with our chest, which is an okay position to be in, but now we have this draggy elbow issue, right? This elbow that's starting to drag through the zone before the arm is ready to actually lay back. We want the arm to be laying back with this shoulder rotation. So what we'll see now is when you do get it fully laid back, because the elbow has been getting ahead or third base side towards us, it's been coming towards us for so long, like a swing. The further you swing out away from the swing set, the further you're going to swing back, right? And now the further you swung back, here you come forward. Boom. You've already started to come forward before that hand really started to got a chance to lay back. So now it's going to be in its full laid back position just a little early. And that's why it looks a little tough for you to get it out there. We're just a little late getting out there. And that's why our release is like right here. It's like in line. Like that ball is out of your fingertips between these two frames here. And we're trying to get that ball out in front of us. You're getting this ball out in line with you. This is going to make it difficult for you to get that fastball glove side. We'll be able to get fastballs to go in on right-handed hitters, arm side, no problem. We may even, in fact, plunk a good amount of righty-handed batters via the fastball because it has a good chance to be coming out of our fingers just a split second too soon, and we don't get it through enough to get it back over the center of the plate. So as we saw with all those big leaguers before, what that looked like at foot strike, I want to show you a guy that can help you see what that arm would look like. And I've been trying to find a tall, lanky guy that has this type of action. And I haven't had the most success, but I'm going to continue to kind of scroll through here. I mean, like, the ground fits your build. He just doesn't come as far, like, across his body as you do in terms of, like, his shoulders counter-rotating, how you got this here. Boom. The ground doesn't get as much as that. He's probably, like, there, if not, like, there. So it's not the most fair comparison. But if we just look at, I'll get to a slower one, right? This position here most similarly matches his position there, but again, it's his shoulders are more straight towards the target, whereas you got that counter rotation going. So if your shoulders were going more here, your guys' hand positions are pretty close to one another. I'd have to drop the ground down to like there to more similarly match the forearm positioning and angle. But in terms of the shoulder load, it's like here. And what we're going to notice is as he then gets the rest of the way into foot strike, how that throwing hand is able to load up above the elbow at this point in time, so that every time the shoulders begin to rotate now, the arm's laying back with the shoulder rotating forward, which brings the elbow forward. Because before that, it's getting there. Boom. Now it's there. So now as the shoulders get to rotate the throw, the arm gets to be a whip. Bam. Through. Versus yours being just late to the party here. So now after this moment in time, when we start that throw, use the one that's not paused there. As we get in that foot strike, because we're late with getting that hand up, now as the elbow and the shoulders begin to come through, the hand now flips up and it's just late. And now it's going to get a little draggy to get through, and then it's short to come out because time's up. Let's see if we can't find someone else. Josh Hader is similar in that counter rotation. He's just left-handed, so let's do this real quick. I thought I could. There we go. Alrighty. Okay, so here we go. There's that. Okay. Boom. Boom. Just matching the points in time. Obviously, a Hader has some more of this and some more of this as he's going down the mound, whereas you're more here and here going down the mound. But the point in time of where we're loaded through our back in our upper body and that squeeze of the shoulder blades, it's about the same point in time. If we then take Hader into his foot strike, bam, right there, when he actually gets the weight into the foot, bam, he's got his 90 degrees there, and then his 90 degrees there. So now as the shoulders rotate, the arm lays back with it. Versus being late to the party and then short through. Just that slight difference. We can see that ball's coming out of the hand here. Where's the head? Behind it. Your ball's coming out here. Where's your head? In line with it. May not seem like much, but it's the difference between big boy power and little boy power, big boy command, little boy command, big boy movement, little boy movement. You're already a big dude. Let's be a big dude with everything. So we just got to have to get some rhythm drills with our arm going to learn how to get it up, to be able to get it down. And right now it's not up, so we can't get it down. And by the time it is up, we've already started to go. So now it's going to be a little funky to come through. Everything else is clean though, man. But I got a lot of good throw-in drills that we'll be able to do to help get the body to start to feel this new position we need to achieve and throw from. All right, bud. Here's your video. We got it synced up from 2 points of view that we took. Apologize for the side view being a little blurry. There's a lot of things going on that the camera wants to try to focus in on. The second time here, we're going to pause it at that moment of foot strike so we can kind of see your body's positioning and how you got yourself down the mound to then better understand how we're going to be able to flow with our throw the rest of the way. So here we are at foot strike. Thinking back to those big league examples and discussions, We can see our lower body checks a lot of the boxes that we're looking for. The back foot could be turned over a little bit more, meaning it's just a little late getting itself going, a little late to complete its turnover, but I'm not really too concerned with that because the knee does a good job turning over, which helps get that back hip to start going forward. Now, could it go more forward if the back knee rotated more by the back foot turning over more? Certainly. Certainly. But what we can see from the front view is we do enough to get that back hip to start to come forward. Now, the more we get it, the more good things that we have the potential to achieve. What we're going to notice, though, is at this moment of getting that foot into the ground and getting it bearing some weight, taking some weight on, is that these shoulders are no longer squared up with the rest of our body. We're no longer looking down our shoulders. Our shoulders are going to begin to rotate early. So now, yes, our hips have been able to rotate forward, but so has the upper half. So we have not been able to achieve as much of that upper-lower half separation if this upper body was still in this type of alignment when that front foot was fully into the ground. Okay, so let's think, how can we keep this front shoulder in longer? Well, if this elbow gets far over here, eventually it'll take the shoulder over here. Right? Once that elbow gets to a certain point, boom, the shoulder's going to start to go with it. Okay, so we want to think then like there's a wall right here. Even we don't need to draw a line. We can just think from where the green meets the blue back here, that's our line. We don't want this glove elbow to go beyond that line. We don't want it to cross the first base side of that line. Boom. Boom. And we can see it because as soon as it does, as soon as that elbow gets on the other side of it, the shoulder starts to come with it. And once that front shoulder starts to come with it, what's going to also come with it? The back shoulder. And now we're left with less rotational ability when we go to throw the baseball because we can't start throwing the ball until this foot's in the ground. Be like hitting, right? We can't start that swing until this front foot gets back into the ground. So now imagine when that front foot, when you hit, is in the ground and your shoulders are already starting to come through. Not going to have a lot of control over that bat, let alone a lot of power over our swing. Same thing's occurring here from a throwing standpoint. We're not going to have a lot of control over our throw as often as we would like, nor are we going to have the amount of power that we're looking for. So we need to think, okay, well, if I don't want my elbow to get this far outside of my body, meaning here's my head and my spine, and this is in, and this is out. I'm trying to have my elbow not get any much further than this, because once it does, my shoulder can't stay in anymore. It begins to go out, 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 out. So how am I going to prevent my elbow from wanting to get this far out? Well, it's got to get to this point later. Okay, well, if it gets to this point later, that means it's got to get to this point at a later point in time. And it's going to get to this point in time later. It's got to get to this point in time later. And what's the difference between this point in time and this point in time? Shoulder, elbow, straight to the target. Oops, I moved our video a little bit. And this frame over here, it's elbow, shoulder. It's going this way. And then over here, it's going even more this way. Now, how can we keep this angle over here going for longer before that elbow starts to bring everything back here? Back here. Because we talked about not wanting the elbow to get over here. So we need to keep it away from here as long as we can. And we can see it's here, it's here, it's here, it's here. And now, from here on out, it's over here. Over here. Over here. Over here. Right? So we got to find a way when we do our hand separation to keep it this posture here, keep this alignment here for longer as the hands and the body continue to go out, rather than it being there and then very quickly getting here. And now it's going here and then there. Obviously, I can't draw that angle from this perspective. And what was the one thing we mentioned in when we were on the mound was you're doing it like what I call a chicken wing. We got this chicken wing here, and it just kind of stays a chicken wing, right? This throwing arm is getting itself separated and away from the body. Let's match it here. Let's get this glove to get away from our body, so that way the elbow extending to be more straight, we can still keep this in alignment. We can still keep this angle as the glove just gets further away from our head and it stays here. And that's how we buy our time, is by allowing our glove to travel towards the target a bit rather than just staying in this tight angle for the entire time. We just need to gain some length. We can even see we got this away from center and this, oops, I drew that little crooked, this way from center. We can definitely see that this distance here is bigger than this distance here. So we can just get a little bit more symmetrical. One, the body is going to feel and flow better being symmetrical, but we're also going to have the benefit of adding some time here where the glove can stay over in this alley, which keeps the elbow away from being in this alley. And that's our biggest thing that we want to work on right now, is just helping our body be able to achieve better upper lower half separation so that we can throw harder with less stress on our arm, and the body's flow from this position on will be able to be more towards the target, which will increase our command. And in order to do that, we just got to think about this elbow not getting our shoulder pulled out. In order to do that, we got to think about our glove gaining some ground towards the target as our hands separate away from the center of our chest. We can see the hand separates from the center of our chest with our throwing with the ball in it, but our hand does not separate away from our chest really with our glove in it. So if we can just get a little bit more length there, we'll get some more time. And with more time, we will avoid this elbow feeling like it needs to go over here because it has nowhere else to go, because it has extra time, extra time, extra time. Got to go somewhere with the extra time. Let's take that extra time and fill it up with the hand just getting a little bit more separated. So then it'll be around here by the time that foot's getting in the ground, and we'll be in a fantastic position with the upper body. All right. Got your video here synced up. All one motion this first time through. Second time we'll pause at foot strike so you can see how we flowed down the mound and got into that position, and then being able to see how we will then proceed out of that position through release. All right, so here we are at the moment of foot strike when the weight And your foot stride takes a little bit to develop because we can see we're real heavy with this heel first. And then, and not only is it the heel first, but then it's the outside of your foot. And then we got to get the inside of the foot to get in there. And then we got to get total completion. Boom. And now we're finally bearing weight with full foot contact into the ground. And what we can see is because it took so long for that foot to get us anchored into the ground, our upper body could not wait any longer and had to begin its rotation forward. So now we have minimized our body's upper and lower half separation. If we look at the moment that your foot first makes connection with the ground, like right here, our upper body is in a much better position. And our lower body has already been able to come through. A big thing we're going to need to learn is the feeling of this foot landing flat into the ground. Getting more throws off of the mound is going to allow more opportunities for your ankle to learn the amount of flexion it needs to be in to have the foot match the same angle of the mound. We want to think right now you're landing heavy on the back, rolling on the outside, finally getting the inside of the foot into the ground so that everything's there. Getting the heel on the ground, then it's the outside of our foot, then it's the inside of our foot, and now finally everything's in the ground. We need to land much more smoothly. Right now, if you're an airline pilot, your passengers are going, oh my goodness, get me off this plane. We want them passengers to instead be like, yo, we landed already? Didn't even know. Just right on in there. The next thing we're going to notice is that we do stride across our body a little bit, which is never an issue if the rest of our body agrees with that direction, both in and out of that stride. What I would say is your front foot is not agreeing with your stride direction. All right, we can see your front leg is out, which is a good way to try to load up our lower half, and a good way to help us keep weight back is this type of front leg technique out of leg lift. But what's happening is the body is not able to propel itself down the mound to help get this leg, more importantly the foot, back underneath itself. And it instead comes up short. Not short in terms of distance, but short in terms of its rotation back around. All right, so you land here. Your body is going through here. This should be more there. Your back foot is here and here. We want to think about getting that stride more over into this range. So we can see as it's going through its rotation, it's just coming up short. Bam. And the reason I believe it's coming up short is because your foot is saying, yo, we want to still go over here. We got more to go before we want to get put into the ground. If your body was content with putting the leg into the ground here, the foot would be more in a line here, if not even still slightly closed off, at least straight in line with the shin. With your foot being opened, that's telling me that your body would be more comfortable if you were over here. Now, let's also look at another reason why, maybe, if that's not the case, why that front foot is opened up as much as it is. When we lift our leg up, we can see we got the heel in front of the toes. In front of, meaning in relation to where home plate is, or the direction we're going. As we go down that mound, very quickly, the heel and the toe are now in a line with one another. They're both leading the way down the mound. And from here on out, the toe is going to be leading the way down the mound. And if your toe is leading the way down the mound, everything's going to want to kind of open with it. Open with it. Open with it. And eventually that foot's just going to keep on going. Okay. So we're going to use Dylan Cease as an example for you. Obviously, Dylan Cease does not throw left-handed, but the reason we're going to use Dylan Cease is because of your very compact arm slot, or not arm slot, arm path. If we watch from hand separation, which would be right now, your throwing arm does not travel very far away from your body towards second base, nor does it travel very far away from your body towards third base. Your elbow does, but your hand doesn't. Your elbow may be going towards third to load up, but the hand doesn't. The hand pretty much just stays at, I would have to roughly estimate you're at a 90-ish degree angle with your elbow bend, your elbow flexion, if not more than a 90, tighter. When I say more, let me rephrase that, because if you think more than 90 degrees as in 100, that'd be a bigger angle. A tighter angle, a less than 90 degree angle, especially here, it's definitely less than 90 degree angle. And then when it gets to here at foot strike, it's definitely less than 90 degree angle. So your hand is just very compact to your head, to your body the entire time, as if you were a catcher. Nothing wrong with having a compact arm, but I'm going to show you how we need to fill this compact arm with some space. So Dylan Cease is going to be the guy that we're using to do that. So his hand does not go that far away from his body from hand separation, but we're going to use time and space to help him create power and fluidity. So we then get you. Actually, it's going to be better if we just flip Cease to make him look lefty. Let's do that. Okay. So there's that. And there's you. So we can see out of hand separation, Dylan Cease is always going to maintain a bent elbow in his throwing arm. but he allows that bent elbow to kind of get a little bigger before it gets back tight again. So that way it doesn't stay compact and get tighter from there. So, and how he does that is by dropping that hand down out of the glove a little bit more than what you are. You're dropping it out of the glove, certainly, right? We can mark it with here to here, but then it very quickly comes back up to here. And then very soon after, it's back at the same height that it started separation at. And then from there, it's only going to have one thing it can do to buy time until that front foot gets in the ground, and that start to come into your body to tighten that angle up to ultimately get us into here with it up here. So if we kind of trace that same thing with Dylan Cease, point for point, right? Ball's right there. It's officially out of the glove. Yours is right there. It's officially out of the glove. So we're as close with, and we're just talking upper body and more specifically glove arm, throwing arm. And after this moment in time, only throwing arm. So we'll take Dylan Cease, a couple frames forward. Boom. You can see his hand. Oh, let me mark him. So ball. Take him a few frames forward. Ball. Do the same thing for you. We will now take you. A few frames further. Ball. Now, obviously, how big his is here and how big yours is here with the markings is all perspective based, right? How far away the camera is from you and how far the camera is away from Cease with the views. Those are all different. We're just looking at relation to the rest of the body, right? So if we now take this marker and go to his body, where is that at, right? It's right here. We take yours, and where is that at in your body? It's right here. So you're like at hip height. His hand has been able to drop down out of the glove to about mid-thigh height. So he's gained time by the hand falling further. What we can also notice as a little sidebar is heel toe positioning versus your toe heel positioning. So how quickly your front hip is starting to open up versus how Dylan Cease's front hip is trying to keep his leg closed. Let's continue on with just focusing on the throwing arm. We'll take Dylan Cease into some more frames, and we can see his kind of hesitation of, I'm not letting it go that much further away from my body in terms of this direction away from my body, this direction away from your body, but it's still staying super close to his body in terms of to that thigh. We take yours a little bit further, and you're, again, coming up already, right? It's very far away from your thigh, but it's still about the same distance away from your upper body. So this time of your arm wanting to come up is already begun. Your upper body wants to throw, and your lower body hasn't even begun to drive forward yet. So we go to Dylan Cease again, and now his arm is starting to come up. But when is the arm starting to come up? Starting to come up when his body's going forward. His body's going forward. His body's going forward. And then foot strike. And this arm, this forearm with the baseball and the elbow is behind his back third base side. because your arm is already starting to come up, really before you're going forward, and it's so short and compact, it gets up and is already at its peak before that foot gets down. So now you got this tight angle, but it's straight to the side, whereas Dylan Cease has this nice loaded angle still behind him. And it's just because your compact arm just needs more time before it gets going. We got to kind of, if we're only going to drop down to here, we got to think about it just kind of like pausing and holding. Here, while the rest of your delivery continues to go, and then let the arm catch up. So that way it's not early to the party here. We just need to buy time. And buying time is the toughest thing for guys with compact arms. And you can kind of see how as it comes out in that normal speed, as that ball comes out, it kind of hesitates and then picks up speed as it goes. It falls out of the glove and kind of slows down, and bam, then it picks up speed. Boom, then it goes. Kind of falls out of the glove. Now I'm going. Hang. Hang. Now I go. Versus yours is down, there's no hang. And if yours is only going to come down to here, it's going to have to hang for a long time. So that's why I would say we don't need to get length by going back towards second base, but we need to get length by dropping it down. Letting the arm as a whole relax while you maintain a bend in the elbow. Once you feel like that arm is getting bent beyond your 90, then you can start to load it up. Mentioned, earlier in the beginning about the front leg. We can see that the leg lifts are very similar here, you and Cease. But then as he goes down, he maintains that heel in front of the toe posture, whereas yours inverts real quickly to neutral and then to open, whereas Cease maintains that heel leading the way, heel leading the way for as long as he can, so that front hip stays closed for as long as it can until it's time to fire, which is probably very quickly after this. Everything's going to start to turn over. Bam, here it goes. And so does the front foot. So if we can try to think about keeping the front toe closed until rotation, that's only going to help increase our power. So that way at foot strike, we're not already opened up. All right, because by the time that front foot gets fully into the ground, bam, we're coming through now. If we get some Cease front view, for you see how at that moment of boom, foot in the ground is right there. Shoulder just square at foot strike. You can see that belt buckle coming through right as that foot's getting into the ground. We can also see that baseball behind him versus you at the moment of foot strike. You can see the baseball, we can't see the forearm. It's because the arm is starting to lay back already back there. Starting to lay back early. Just a little off with the timing. But I do think this should be easy enough for you to get comfortable with by just making throws into this side net over here with different throwing drills that I got for you. And we should be able to figure out how to buy your time very easily. And then this front foot staying closed, that's another one that is a pretty easy thing to feel the difference of. And once you can feel the difference of it, being able to make the adjustment is easy as well. I got one more cease here for you, front view, a couple years old. All right, we got your video here, bud, synced up from 2 points of view that we recorded from. First time will be all one motion so you can see what you looked like. The second time we play it will be paused at the moment of foot strike, so that way you can see the differences between you and the big leaguers that we just got done discussing. And that way we can better have an understanding of how our body is going to make the throw from that point on. So here we are. We can see that foot gets down, and by the time the weight gets into it, bam, we're about right here. We're not even going to talk about the lower body right now, because that's something of its own. We're just going to focus on the upper half, and more importantly, your throwing arm. If I remember correctly, last year in the wintertime, you're coming back from an arm injury, and was trying to get things back in the swing, or back into shape, back into health, back into feeling like you're moving smoothly and like yourself again. I don't want to get too critical of what's going on here. From a pitching standpoint, I just want to evaluate this just from a throwing the baseball standpoint, because there's a lot that we need to address here for you to understand why your arm got to where it got and how it's going to continue to be an issue, both in terms of its health and its ability to throw the ball where you want it to go, aka having command over our throws. As we learned in the big league video, the side view one, at foot strike, this throwing arm needs to be in a 90-90. This hand needs to have flipped up already by this time. So that way, as the shoulders rotate forward to throw, the arm can lay back as it does that. Your arm is going to be flipping up as your shoulders throw, or as your shoulders begin to come through with this throw. So here we are at foot strike. Hand has not even begun to come up yet. So as the shoulders come through, now the hand is flipped up, and we're just going to be so late now. And it's a coin toss now where that ball is going to be going. We need to restructure, re-pattern, re-sync this arm stroke here. Because from here, like we talked about in this session, is like you're getting all this counter rotation with your upper body as if you're going to be a Kyle Harrison like we saw in the big league front videos. Like you're going to be one of those lower slot guys. Yes, the glove. We want that glove to be over here, but you're going to like a Josh Hader extreme counter rotation of the shoulders. But then you're trying to come up and throw from way up at a high 3/4 arm slot. Those two positions don't typically coincide with one another. But even more detrimental than that is the height or the elevation at which this elbow travels upwards and putting this ball so close to your body here that now everything's got to kind of flip out around that. And now we're getting really around the baseball when we're throwing rather than coming through it like we saw with those big leaguers. Things are really kind of getting just outside of ourselves a bit. Just a tremendous amount of stress being put on the arm to have to catch up. It's so far behind. I mean, the moment the foot actually gets in the ground, we're here. Weight bearing, we're there. And all those other guys we saw, that hand's already flipped up. I mean, it doesn't really matter who we choose, bud. I mean, I can just go, not even name specific, just date. We can't do him. He's submarine. But we just do, like, these guys right here and get rid of some of them that are multiples. And we just open these guys up. And we're going to see at foot strike, like, right there's foot strike. Hands already up. Paul Skeens, 104. Or not 104, 101. Even with some funk in the beginning. I don't know if we're going to be able to see it. Yeah, foot strike. There's that arm up there. As mentioned before, an extreme example of your counter rotation, Josh Hader, but you don't got Josh Hader's arm slot. So there's no need to load it up like Josh Hader if you're not going to be, and we can see at the moment of this foot getting in a foot strike, the hand's up. So that way, oops, I'm going the wrong way. As the shoulders come through, going forward instead of around. But again, there's Josh Hader's low 3/4, even potentially sidearm, true sidearm. It's not the right angle. Oh, we could have seen it probably still with that. Even with a very unique, like 1-of-1 windup at foot strike, whereas that arm is already up in that 90 degrees, 90 degrees, armpit elbow. Ben Joyce, 104. We'll see the same thing at that moment of foot strike. That arm's going to be up, ready to go. Arm's got to be up at foot strike because after foot strike we throw. We got to throw the ball down. We can't throw the ball down unless that ball's up to be thrown down. Same thing from DeGrom. By the time that foot gets in the foot strike, that throwing arm needs to be loaded up. And we got our 90-90. Oops. We got our 90-90. Not going to be able to see it from this angle from Harrison. Maybe. Top minor league bullpen pitching prospect. Hands up. Go down. That's not the right angle. Moment of foot strike. That hand's already up. To come on through. Moment of foot strike. That hand's already up. To come on through. Moment of foot strike. There's that hand up. To throw it down. Right? So, big difference then when we look back at yours now. Your foot down, and that arm is just so late to the party. So, we're not going to be touching the mound for quite some time for you, bud, because we really got to retrain, repattern, resync your arm path, your arm stroke, your arm cycle, however you want to categorize it. Otherwise, you're going to have just chronic arm pain, and that wicked out of control command that we showed Thursday is in our catch play at just 50 feet is going to be a constant, and we definitely can't have that. So we're just been working arm path drills like a maniac going forward.